Now I'll show you what we're gonna do. See that? Okay. So anyway, let me look at something. Yep, it's still recording. So sometimes that battery on that thing doesn't last as long as I want it to. So we got stuck on the side of the highway and we jacked it up, and he had a spare and we changed the tire, and he said, well, let's get going. I said, well, no, let's do this just out of caution. Let's go into the next town. And we looked on our computers and our phones, and saw there was a tire shop in the next town. And I said, let them look at those tires, the rest of them, and because we didn't have a spare, and something happened to another one, we were just out of luck. So we went to the next town, and we had the man look them over, and sure enough, all four of the tires, all of them were bad. So he had to get 4 new tires for his camper, and we changed them. Well, I'm glad we did, because we started out about 4 o'clock that afternoon from there, and we drove all night to get to Ohio. And if we had been stuck somewhere on that road with that, another tire would have went, not having a spare, it'd have been a nightmare. It would have been a nightmare. Those are the things that happen, folks, and just those are issues that go on. Now look, does he look different? Does he look a little bit different with the hand on the side and all that? We're gonna make him now, as you can see, and we can put him in some overalls. Okay, we got this cut back here. I want to cut a little bit more back in here. So it comes up to the seat here, as you can see. Okay, well, look at that. We're already starting to have something to look at. But we took him from having both hands in his pockets to having one hand down that we can drill a hole through and put a fishing pole through. Now let's go up to the head up here a little bit. Now this ear is pretty much defined, but we're gonna have to cut into this one. There we go. Let's define this ear a little bit. There we go. So we drove to a little place called Piqua, Ohio. P-I-Q-U-A. Piqua. I think that's the way you pronounce it. That's it. Piqua, Ohio. That's where his brother lived. And we drove there. We drove all the way there, and we did good. So I drove a lot, and then I dropped him off, helped him unload. We got there actually we got at a truck stop about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was about an hour from his house, and we tried to get a little sleep there. It was so cold, though, it was hard to So we ended up in a Waffle House drinking coffee and that, so keeping warm. So but we finally got there about 9 o'clock that morning, and I helped him unload, and then talked with his brother a little bit and stuff. And then and the night before, they had had about 4 feet of snow, so there was a lot of snow on the ground. We were traveling through the snow to try to, and I left there about 1 o'clock, and I headed to my son's. My son lives about, because my son's been working so much, and headed there and had lunch with my son one day, because I couldn't really stay because he was working so much. Most of you know he works at I've told you, he works at the federal prisons, and they have really been busy. I'll tell you, it's been and my grandchildren, I didn't get to see them, but because I think I shared a story that my son went through a divorce with the the grandchildren's mother, because of infidelity on her part, and so they both have shared custody, and it was sometimes, well, you know what it is. If you have children or divorced, or you're divorced or whatever, you know what that's about when there's shared custody and one doesn't want the kids to. It's just a long story. Anyway, I got to see him, have lunch with him, and then I headed back. I stopped in Gatlinburg. There's a place there called the Wood Whittlers. Most of you might know where it's at. And last time I stopped there, they had some OCC knives there. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll just pick me up another one, and because I like OCCT, and I understand that Mike Shipley now has sold out OCCT to another maker, or I don't know if he's got part interest in. I'm not sure what the deal is, but anyway, I should have known that the knives would be sold and they would be out of them. In other words, because OCCT knives are pretty hard to get right now, just like Helvey are. So, but I had a chance to stop and talk to the proprietors and stuff just for a little while, and talk carving a little bit. And of course, I was going to go see my buddy Gene Webb, who is there in Townsend, Tennessee, but Gene was not home, so I had to move on. So that day I drove, let's see, the day that I even saw, it took about 4 more hours to get to my son's. I drove, took about 13 hours to get from Tulsa to where we were in Ohio, and then I stayed with my son. I drove to my son's, so I was about 36 hours and driving without any sleep, so, which is not a good thing necessarily to do. I would not recommend that at all to anyone. All right, see how we got the ear now cutted, as you can see. That wasn't really a very wise thing to do. I should have stopped and rested, but I wanted to get on. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go on in between these pants right here and cut this off. So anyway, that went on. That happened. Let me make sure we're still recording. Yes, we're still recording. So it was interesting trip. Good Lord was with me, folks. I tell you what, He was with me. The Lord Jesus. Tell you what, being on the side of that highway, there is nothing funny about me stranded on the side of a highway. And you're always afraid that, you know, somebody, it's not so much the being stranded there, it's the fact that people are going 70, 80 miles, 90 miles an hour down that highway. And all it takes is for someone to just veer off just a little bit too much. And before you know it, here they crash into you, you know. So I was praying the whole time, asking the Lord to protect us. And because it was a pretty hairy thing. And I'm not talking, you know, I'm not talking to the choir when I'm talking to most people. They know what it's like to be stranded like that on the side of a highway. And if you can, we were very blessed that there was an exit that we could kind of get off the highway a little bit. Okay, and we're cutting into that. So that was a blessing, I'll tell you what. Because, I mean, it was scary. And then every time them trucks would go by, and it was cold. I think it was, the wind was blowing real hard. And I think it was about 30 degrees that day. And every time one of them trucks would go by, it would throw that wind on you. And so, but we were blessed. We got into the next town and fixed it. But I'd never been, yeah, I have. I've been to Ohio before, but I mean, not to Piqua. I think that's where a carver named Jim Foster lives. I remember. A very distinguished carver by the name of Jim Foster, and I think he lives up there. I think my friend told me that. Just kind of going around, just kind of getting things, and I'm kind of, here we go, we're gonna make that cut right there and right there. Cut up a little bit in here and in here. So I'm gonna tell you, and let's just go ahead and make our cut for our hand right there. Let's just go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what we're gonna do with this hand. So that was an interesting trip. Always love to go see my son and my grandbabies. They live in Kentucky. And like I said, he has been working so much. He works for the federal prisons. He is in internal affairs. And there's a lot to do, I tell you. There's, in other words, they investigate guards that are bad, and of course prisoners that do things, because there's a lot of stabbings, and there's a lot of things that go. There's a guy that just came into the prison. He told me, a guy named called Albuquerque. If you want to look it up, his name is Albuquerque Head, and he was one of the guys that was involved with the Albuquerque, like the city Albuquerque Head, and he was involved in the January 6th riots. And the reason he's in a federal prison is because what he did was he went up there and kind of shielded one of the guards, you know what, during the riot, one of the guards that were trying to stop people from coming in, and then turned around and took the guard and threw him into the crowd. So that was a no-no. And So it was, he's in that, he just came to Big Sandy prison where my son works. And I don't know how long he'll be there. A lot of those people, they come in and then they leave and everything like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to cut into that nose, and we're going to do that, and then on this side we're going to cut that nose. Now for some reason this had a, there's an issue with this nose. It kind of split right in there, so I'm going to have to kind of do some, there it is right there. We're just kind of cutting into now in the normal nose, it was, as you see, let me see, you have this, you just have this look right here, which is a great look, you know, and all that stuff. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna make a little mustache right here. Gonna come out here and make a little mustache, and we're gonna come up here and come down here. We're gonna make a little mustache for him, and we'll put whiskers on it and all that kind of stuff, and I'm gonna come in here and make a little cut. So you see how we're changing this whole, you know, even though you don't have a bandsaw and you're using a roughout, you don't have to necessarily, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be getting some roughouts, and we're going to be making some changes to them. Is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do that. Make changes to them to where they don't have to just follow the pattern of what you're doing. Okay? Let's cut that out. Let's come here. So, yeah, that was an interesting little trip. Very interesting little trip. Oh boy. That's always very interesting when, yeah, those type of things happen to you. And what I want to do is kind of come out here a little bit, and I want to just cut down like this, and then I want to cut there, see, where we can kind of get that mustache just like that. See how you cut that, and then come out here like this and come from the inside, make that cut right there, make that cut right there. There we go. See where it kind of comes up to that part in there. We've got our mustache, and you just use the tip of your blade to do that, in other words. So Piqua, Ohio, that's where my friend is now living. He is he was a taxidermist at one time, and COVID, he lost his job over COVID, as did a lot of people. Folks, I tell you what, that COVID, it really, really hurt a lot of people. It did, and it killed several of my friends. Friends that I had worked with at the plant, one right down the street. I mean, it was devastating. I lost him, and I cut his wife's yard just to help them through this time, but we lost him to COVID, and it was a very quick thing. I mean, he went into the hospital, and he seemed not too bad, and then 7 days later he was gone. He went into respiratory failure and all kind of stuff, and we lost him. Very devastating to his family and to everyone around here. All right, now I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna make that cut right there, so it's just not a straight. Make a cut up here and one down here. Okay. And let's see, what are we gonna do here? Do we want to put overalls on him? Nah. Let me see something here. Let me draw something out here. I'm gonna kind of. Let me draw this right here. And come up here and draw this across here. And draw this down here like this. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay. What we're doing, we're gonna have a little. I'm gonna make a cut like this, and I'm gonna come here from and remove from the inside. I'll show you what I'm making here, because I don't want it to look like the picture. So I'm gonna cut a little bit different clothes on him, and you can do that. You know, a lot of people, they want all the original stuff, but I love to take things and create them and make them different than what I now when you come over the shoulder, you want to come from the inside of the shoulder here, so it looks like come in here like this, and there we go, just like that. And then we come around here like this, and we come back here like this, and we cut from the inside of this right in here.